Hello. Hey, good to hear from you, man. I don't think so, man. I was told different. Can't do it. Nah. Tell you what, man. I quit, all right? It ain't worth it. I just quit. Thumbnail and that conversation you overheard says a lot. It covers one of the reasons I'm covering in this video, plus 4 other reasons why some good companies will lose good drivers just like that. You might want to be set wise to this. And if you're new in the industry, and arm yourself for the possibilities. Mega carriers and companies, pay attention, because I might just open your eyes to reasons why you're losing good drivers. So let's get started right now. Deviator here. I'm glad you're watching today's video. You get into a job and you want to make the best of it. You're looking to make really good money, and then all of a sudden, reality sets in. This video's purpose is to talk to those new company drivers or new drivers in the industry that are really truly green and don't really know as much as we do. If you're working for a mega carrier as a company driver, there's a lot to be said for expectations. So stay tuned, we're going to cover a lot. 5 good reasons most mega carriers will lose good drivers. So here we go. We're going to cover this from 2 different viewpoints. Viewpoint 1 is from the viewpoint of the company. So as a driver, you kind of know how they're thinking. Viewpoint 2 is as a driver, a lot of unknowns may crop up and bite you in the butt, so pay attention. Reason number 1 is pretty plain. It's the equipment. Most mega carriers, when they hire you on as a driver, they assume you know pretty much the routine and how things are with regards to equipment. You first start out, you get the worst piece of equipment that's pretty much, quote, ready to retire. Why? Because, well, they don't trust you, they don't know you. And those drivers that have been on with that mega carrier for the longer period of time wind up getting the better equipment as it's being replaced. It's called seniority, and it's a fact of life that as a driver working, especially when you're new, you have to deal with. Replacing equipment is relatively expensive and can range from as low as 85 grand to a strip truck to as much as 150,000 with all the bells and whistles and all the safety features. So depending on the mega carrier that you work for, you'll get good equipment, but sometimes as a newer driver, you get the older stuff. With the older trucks, you have a problem with the equipment getting older, and you have more breakdowns associated with the equipment itself because, well, think about it, things age and things break. When you're hired on with a mega carrier and you get the older equipment, you tend to spend more time in the shop with longer times for repair durations because you're waiting on parts to come in and repairs to be done. So sometimes as a newer driver, you feel like your money's less when it's actually the same. You feel like you're that odd guy at the bottom of the stack. Money's harder to come by when you have older equipment. Second reason is load plans. They can go awry real quick. Drop me a comment and let me know what your load plan experiences have been like working for the mega carrier you work for. I'd certainly be interested to know. Most companies divide their companies into 2 departments. One department covers the contracts with the customers to get the goods shipped. The second department just handles the drivers, all the contacts, the loads, the appointments, and they're a separate group of people in a totally separate office somewhere. So let's talk a minute about the balancing act that has to go on, trying to divide their interests between 2 different segments, which should be 1. Companies that do what I just mentioned, setting up the load contracts, never talk with the drivers. All they see are numbers on their screen, the rates that they're expecting the customers to pay to get that freight shipped. Then with the second department, they're driver managers, supervisors. They're the ones we deal with face to face every day. They don't know anything about the loads and they don't know anything about the freight being moved. All they see are the same numbers, and generally they don't deal with just one. They deal with hundreds of drivers. 90% of it's over text messages. Very few of them are over phone calls unless you run into problems. The more they can handle that in a micro fashion with many drivers, the more money they'll make. And depending on how you interact with the people at the company, it may be good or bad. Reason number 3 is poor interactions. Most mega carriers put a large emphasis on driver orientation. They put a lot of strength, time, and money into making sure that you as a driver understand their procedures, their paperwork, their log equipment, and their expectations on maintaining their equipment. They don't really focus a lot of time on how to correctly interact with company help, but they put even less time training their staff they hire on to deal with the drivers when it comes to driver managers and individuals that deal face-to-face and on a daily basis with drivers. Don't have a bunch of people in those offices that have hard-nosed experience like we do, dealing every day with delays, with fuel, with long appointment times sitting at shippers and receivers. So when they're on the phone with you, that's the last thing they're thinking of. You know, they don't think of the finer points of what goes on when we're sitting here behind the wheel. Some of the smaller companies don't have those same issues. The smaller companies, first of all, they have less contracts to fill, but you get more of a personal one-on-one, and more often than not, you get people on the other end of the phone that at least have driven and kind of understand the industry. Now, as a driver, you have a singular focus. The only thing you're worried about is the truck, the load, and the road ahead. It's one thing at a time until the next item comes up. And your approach to how you deal with the people, whether they're a large company or a small company, will either make you or break you, depending on your outlook on the industry and life ahead of you that day. A driver will leave a company in a flash if they figure out that the stress of interacting with the help outweighs the money they make, and they'll start to look elsewhere. Fourth reason is dispatch and the perception. Dispatch, as I said earlier, can make or break a driver. Mega carriers have an approach of loads by the numbers. They focus on efficiency. They'll have maybe 10 different people in one office dealing with 100 drivers at the same time. The more drivers they have on one person, the less money they expend in getting better contracts for the drivers. And usually the first thing that suffers is the relationship that exists between those in the office and those of us out on the road. So the one thing that's always lost in a situation like that is that personal experience that you would get with some of the smaller companies, or if you were on your own. So as drivers, we often get lost in the crowd, and that's an unfortunate side effect working with a mega carrier. You have to go through a lot of dispatchers. You may run into a lot of issues, but now you at least know going in. Reason number 5 is the money. It's the core of this entire video and the entire conversation. Because that conversation that took place, simulated, at the start of this video can very easily happen to you. It's all about the money. And trucking, believe it or not, is the mainstay of success or failure for not just the trucking industry, but the overall economy across the country. Making that work isn't easy, while at the same time you're making contracts that attract more customers and increase the revenue for the company. You've got to be able to competitively price what you pay your drivers to keep them loyal and keep them working for you and not going off somewhere else. So consequently, you win some, you lose some. As a company driver, the money is dictated by the mileage you get. It's not every mile you drive in the truck, but it's every mile that you carry a load. As long as you get enough loads to get you the mileage that makes the pay worth it, everything's fine. And for any number of reasons, that can go south real quick. Breakdowns, delays, long times being at shippers and receivers can happen just like that. If as a driver you don't take the initiative to think ahead, you're going to set yourself up for failure. From the company's perspective, be prepared to sit down every once in a while and talk with us. If you've never been on the road and you don't know what we're going through, you're going to lose drivers like that. So as a driver, you need to have the patience to look at the bigger picture. As long as you didn't make the initiative to try to understand both sides, see it from the company's perspective and from the driver's perspective, you'll be more apt to succeed in this business and you'll make a lot more money. So I hope this video is a little bit of help to you. If it was, hit the like button down below. If you currently work for a mega carrier and are thinking about becoming an owner-operator, let me know what your situation is and share a little bit about what you do and what you want, I'd be interested to know, because I'd like to see if we can relate what my situation was to what yours is now. And if I can offer any help, leave a comment, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe. We get these videos on a frequent basis. And if you're interested in going from a mega carrier situation into an owner-operator situation, check out this video here on the left of your screen. I hope it gives you some insight as to what life as an owner-operator is like out there. Be sure and like and share the video with others. While you're on the road, think of others. Your kindness may help lighten the load. Until next time, be happy, stay safe, and make it count.